The sun rose over the village with a soft gold hue, its first light breaking across the dew-covered rooftops. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys as the townsfolk stirred, their thoughts full of anticipation for the grand event drawing near. The Festival of Light came but once each year, a cherished celebration marking the end of the dark season and the return of warmth and life. It was a time when the whole village gathered in the square, lanterns strung from tree to tree, their glow soft and magical in the evening air. Musicians would play lively tunes, dancers would spin in colorful garments, and long tables would groan under the weight of feasts prepared for the night. For many, it was the happiest day of the year, filled with laughter, music, and a hope renewed with each spark of light. For Elira, the festival had always been a distant dream, something glimpsed from behind shutters or through the cracks in the courtyard gate. Orphaned young, she had come to live with her stepmother, a woman of sharp tongue and colder heart, and her two stepsisters Mira and Sila. They lived in a grand house on the edge of the village, a place once filled with warmth and beauty when Elira's mother had been mistress of it. Now the rooms were cold, the air heavy with the bitterness of a woman who resented the child left behind by her late husband. Elira's days were spent scrubbing floors until her hands were raw, hauling water, and mending clothes not her own. Kindness was rare in that house and laughter rarer still. Yet as the Festival of Light approached this year, Elira allowed herself a fragile hope. She had heard whispers in the marketplace. This year's festival would be grander than ever, for the visiting prince and his retinue were expected to attend. All the young women of the village were preparing their finest garments, hoping to catch the eye of nobility, to be seen and remembered. Mira and Sila chattered endlessly about what they would wear, their voices sharp and cruel when they spoke of Elira. You? At the festival? Mira sneered one evening. Who would notice a girl in rags? Sila added with a laugh. Their mother said nothing, her thin smile speaking volumes. No, Elira was not meant to attend, not in their minds. But Elira had a secret. Hidden in a small wooden chest beneath the floorboards of her tiny room lay her mother's gown. Though faded with time, the fabric still shimmered faintly in the light, its stitching delicate and fine. Her mother had worn it to her own Festival of Light many years ago, and Elira remembered the stories she used to tell, of music and dancing, of lanterns glowing like stars come to earth. It was all Elira had left of her, this dress and the memory of her voice. For weeks, in stolen moments between her endless chores, Elira had worked to restore the gown. Her fingers ached from hours spent sewing delicate stitches by candlelight, patching worn areas with scraps she had begged from a kind seamstress in the market. She washed the fabric in lavender water, coaxing back its softness, and carefully ironed each fold. Thread by thread it was coming alive again. She imagined herself wearing it, walking beneath the lanterns, her mother's spirit with her in every step. Each day as the festival drew nearer, the excitement in the village grew. Banners were hung from windows, merchants brought in special goods, and children ran through the streets laughing. Elira's heart swelled with longing. Just once she wished to be part of it, to dance, to smile without fear, to feel the joy that seemed to belong to everyone but her. Late at night, after the house had fallen silent, she would stand before her small mirror, holding the gown against herself. The fabric whispered softly, a promise of what could be. One afternoon, as Elira knelt by the hearth scrubbing soot from the bricks, Mira and Sila burst into the room. They were flushed with excitement, their arms full of fine cloth and ribbons. "Look what Mother bought us for the festival," Mira cried. The sisters twirled, laughing, their voices sharp as blades. "The prince will surely notice us in these," Sila added. They glanced at Elira with smug smiles. "Poor thing. You'll be scrubbing floors while we dance." Elira bit her tongue, her cheeks burning. She said nothing, her mind fixed on the gown hidden beneath her floorboards. They wouldn't stop her, not this time. As the festival day approached, the household grew frantic with preparations. The stepmother barked orders, the sisters demanded constant attention, and Elira worked herself to exhaustion trying to keep up. Yet each night, when all was still, she would return to her secret task, her determination unwavering. Finally the gown was ready. It hung from the old wardrobe in her room, clean and gleaming. Elira stared at it with wide eyes, her heart full of hope. Tomorrow was the Festival of Light. Tomorrow she would stand beneath the lanterns as her mother once had. But hope, in a house ruled by cruelty, was a fragile thing. Early the next morning, before dawn had fully broken, Elira crept to the courtyard to fetch water. The air was crisp, the first light of day touching the sky. Her mind was full of the coming evening, of the joy she might finally taste. As she returned, a sharp scent caught her nose, acrid, bitter. Smoke. A sinking dread filled her as she hurried through the house toward the yard. There, in the center of the courtyard, a small fire smoldered. Blackened fabric curled in the flames, the smell of burning cloth thick in the air. Her gown. Elira stumbled forward, her breath caught in her throat. The old gown, her mother's gown, lay in the fire reduced to ash and ruin. A harsh laugh rang out behind her. Mira and Sila stood by the doorway, smirking. "Oops," Mira said, feigning innocence. "It must have caught when we were burning the trash." Sila laughed coldly. "Such a shame. I'm sure you would have been the belle of the festival, in rags." Elira stared at the ashes, her heart breaking. All her work, all her hope, gone in an instant. She sank to her knees, the world spinning around her. Behind her, the stepmother watched in silence, her arms crossed. "You'll not disgrace this house by playing dress-up," she said curtly. "There's work to be done." Tears stung Elira's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. With trembling hands she reached for the remnants of the gown, gathering the singed fabric close. The stepsisters laughed again and turned away, their footsteps echoing through the house. Alone in the courtyard, Elira rocked back and forth, clutching the ashes of her dreams. The day that had promised so much had been stolen from her. The festival of light would come and go, and once again she would watch from the shadows. But in the depths of her sorrow, a faint warmth stirred beneath her fingers. Deep in the ashes, something waited. A flicker of forgotten magic, old and patient. And though Elira did not yet know it, her destiny had only just begun to awaken. The house remained thick with the scent of smoke long after the ashes of the burned gown had cooled. Elira, her heart raw, returned to her duties in silence, her mind churning with sorrow. But beneath the grief, another feeling began to stir, one that had been foreign to her for so long. It was not anger exactly. It was not bitterness. It was something deeper, a steady rising resolve. The festival of light was tomorrow. The thought repeated in her mind like a drumbeat. The gown may have burned, but her will had not. Somehow, some way she would not be kept away from this night. Yet as that quiet determination grew within her, so too did the envy that festered in the hearts of Mira and Sila. The sisters could not abide Elira's grace, a beauty that no fine cloth nor jeweled comb could match. It was in her eyes, clear and bright despite her hardships. It was in her smile, rare though it was, which seemed to light her whole face when it appeared. And it was in her bearing, even in rags, as though dignity had been woven into her very bones by her late mother's love. No matter how grand their new dresses, Mira and Sila knew in their hearts that if Elira stood beside them at the festival, she would outshine them without trying. And that was something they could not allow. All that day, as Elira scrubbed the floors and polished the windows, the sisters whispered in corners, their voices sharp with jealousy. "She thinks she can still come to the festival?" Mira hissed, eyes narrow. "Even after what we did?" "She'll find some way," Sila replied, her tone bitter. "She always does. That wretched gown should have been the end of it." Their mother said little, though she heard them clearly. In truth, she shared their thoughts. Deep down, she feared the attention Elira might draw, not only from villagers, but from the prince himself should his gaze fall upon her. The stepmother's ambitions were clear. One of her daughters must catch the prince's eye. Elira had no place in that plan. So when Mira and Sila plotted their next cruelty, their mother merely watched with her thin, knowing smile and said nothing. As the sun dipped lower and the last of the festival preparations filled the air, Mira and Sila set their trap. They sought out Elira in the kitchen as she kneaded dough for the evening bread, her sleeves rolled, her hair tied back simply. "Oh, Elira," Mira began, voice syrup-sweet, "you do know the prince's heralds are already in the village?" Elira nodded silently, not trusting herself to speak. "And that every young woman attending will be presented before him?" Sila added, her eyes gleaming. "I had heard so," Elira replied quietly. Mira clucked her tongue. "But of course you won't be going. Not after, well." She gave a mock sigh. "It's just as well. No one would look twice at someone in rags." "Besides," Sila chimed in, "it would be so embarrassing for our family, wouldn't it, mother?" The stepmother, seated nearby with her embroidery, did not look up. "Indeed," she said coolly. "This house must maintain its proper place in society. I trust Elira understands that." The words landed like stones in Elira's chest. But she refused to show it. She straightened, her hands steady on the dough. "Of course," she answered softly. "I would never shame this house." Mira and Sila exchanged glances, satisfied with the exchange. Yet beneath their smugness, a flicker of unease remained. There was something in Elira's calm that unsettled them, a strength they could neither name nor diminish. That evening, as twilight deepened and lanterns began to glow along the village streets, the sisters prepared for the festival. Their laughter rang through the house as they pinned their hair high and fastened ribbons of gold and crimson. Their dresses shimmered in the candlelight, layers of fine fabric rustling with every movement. Elira watched from the shadows, her heart aching. She longed for her mother in that moment more than ever, for her gentle voice and steady arms. But she stood tall, refusing to let despair overtake her. Later, in the small hours when the house had gone quiet, Elira crept to the courtyard once more. The ashes of her mother's gown still lay there, faintly glimmering under the moonlight. She knelt, brushing her fingers through the soot. The warmth she had felt earlier remained, not of fire but of something older. Something waiting. A whisper seemed to rise from the earth, soft and melodic. It stirred the air around her, lifting her hair in an unseen breeze. Elira closed her eyes, listening. She could not yet understand the voice of the wind. But something within her shifted, an ancient thread beginning to uncoil, a destiny not yet revealed. And though she had no gown, no finery, and no invitation, a certainty filled her heart. She would go to the Festival of Light. The dawn of the Festival of Light broke crisp and clear. A soft golden haze touched the village rooftops, and the air carried the scent of dew and wood smoke. From every window fluttered ribbons of white and gold, and in the village square, garlands of fresh flowers hung from beams and arches. The celebration would begin at sunset, but already the streets bustled with preparations. In the stepmother's house, excitement crackled in the air. Mira and Sila were up before first light, their laughter ringing through the halls as they busied themselves with final fittings and admired their gleaming gowns. Elira, her heart steady with fragile hope, rose quietly. She had dreamt through the long night, not of despair, but of some faint promise carried on the wind. She had awoken resolved. Though she had no finery, her mother's simple gown would suffice. It had been lovingly sewn, its pale blue fabric faded but whole, embroidered with tiny flowers along the sleeves. Would have to be enough. She would go to the festival. She tied her hair back with a length of ribbon and went to fetch the gown from the chest where she'd carefully folded it. But when she opened the lid, her breath caught, empty. The gown was gone. A chill rushed through her. A creeping dread sent her running through the house, room by room, until she heard voices outside, taunting, familiar. She flung open the back door. There in the yard, where the damp earth still steamed from an earlier rain, a blackened heap of ash smoldered beneath the pale morning sun. Bits of charred fabric curled among the cinders. A faint, bitter smoke rose in thin tendrils, stinging her eyes. Her breath hitched. She knew at once what it was. Her mother's gown, her only gown, reduced to ashes. From the stone steps, Mira and Sila watched with gleeful faces, their arms folded. "Oh dear," Mira called, feigning concern. "Such a terrible accident." "Yes," Sila added, smirking. "We tried to dry it by the fire last night, but it must have caught." She shrugged. "So clumsy of us." Elira stood frozen, the weight of their cruelty pressing down like iron. The ache in her throat rose until her chest burned. Her mother's gown was all she had left, her only hope of standing beneath the festival lights, of honoring her mother's memory. Now it lay in ruin, and with it, her dreams. She turned toward the house. In the shadows of the doorway stood her stepmother, lips pursed, eyes cool with thinly veiled satisfaction. She said nothing. The silence was worse than any words. Humiliated, grief-stricken, Elira could not bear to remain. She stumbled down the steps, past the mocking laughter of her stepsisters, through the gate and down the lane. The morning light shimmered cruelly bright. Every banner and flower she passed seemed to twist the knife deeper. She ran, her bare feet striking the earth, her tears falling hot and fast. Past the rows of houses, past the market square, beyond the edge of the fields, she fled until the village fell away behind her and the cool shadow of the forest embraced her. Among the trees the world grew quiet. Only the rustle of leaves and the faint murmur of a distant stream reached her ears. Here at least no eyes would follow her. No cruel voices would mock her grief. Elira collapsed at the base of a great oak, her body trembling. The sobs came in waves, harsh and choking. She pressed her face to her knees, the cool earth beneath her offering little comfort. Her mother's gown was gone. The dream she had clung to so tightly, that she might stand among the villagers, might dance beneath the stars, lay shattered. The weight of all the years of neglect, of loneliness, of longing pressed upon her now. She had been so foolish to hope even for a moment, that things might change. The woods grew still around her, save for the occasional creak of branches swaying in the breeze. Time slipped by unnoticed as she wept, her sorrow soaking into the roots of the ancient trees. Yet amid her grief, another feeling stirred, faint but insistent. A presence. The same strange warmth she had sensed in the courtyard days before, when her mother's ashes had glimmered faintly in the moonlight. It touched her now, soft as a breath, cool as the forest air. Elira lifted her head, tears streaking her cheeks. Her breath slowed. The rustling leaves seemed to whisper, not in words but in something older, something deeper. She looked around, her gaze sweeping the quiet glade. A shaft of sunlight broke through the canopy, falling in a bright pool at the base of an ancient yew tree. Drawn without knowing why, Elira rose unsteadily to her feet. She moved toward the light, each step slow, her heart beating in her ears. When she reached the sunlit spot, a sudden breeze stirred, warm and fragrant. The air shimmered faintly. The trees seemed to lean closer as if listening. Elira knelt in the soft moss, her fingers brushing the earth. A quiet voice rose in her mind, not her own, not human but as clear as thought. Do not despair, child of the old blood. She caught her breath, her heart thundering. The voice held no threat. Only comfort and something else, recognition. You are more than what they see. The words echoed through her, awakening something long buried. A memory of her mother's stories, tales of the forest spirits, of ancient guardians who watched over the land and those who honored it. Elira pressed her palms to the earth, tears still glistening but now mingled with wonder. I have nothing left, she whispered aloud. They took everything. Not everything, the voice answered. You are enough. The breeze strengthened, swirling around her. The leaves overhead danced and shimmered. In the golden light, for just a moment, Elira glimpsed a figure. A woman cloaked in green and gold, her hair crowned with woven branches, her gaze kind and knowing. Then the vision faded, leaving only the whisper of leaves. Elira sat back, her breath steadying. The despair that had gripped her so fiercely now loosened its hold. In its place grew something new, a fragile hope, a spark refusing to die. She did not know what had just happened, nor what it might mean. But she knew this. She would not give in. She would not remain hidden in the woods while the festival lights danced in the village. Somehow, even in rags, even in ruin, she would find her way. The sun rose higher, casting dappled light through the trees. Elira wiped her face, her resolve gathering. She stood, the wind lifting her hair gently as if in blessing. She would not be kept away. Not tonight. Night crept gently across the forest, the sky deepening to a rich velvet blue. Stars pierced the darkness one by one, shimmering cold and bright. The festival of light would soon begin. Lanterns were likely being lit in the village square even now, their soft glow filling the streets, their reflections dancing in the river. Elira still sat in the glade, her back against the ancient yew. Her tears had dried, but the ache in her chest remained raw and hollow. The hope she had clung to earlier now flickered, fragile as a dying ember. Her fingers absently brushed her palms. She had not noticed before, though her tears, grief and wandering through the woods had long since cleaned her skin, faint streaks of soot remained on her hands. The ashes from her mother's gown. They clung to her skin in fine dark lines, refusing to fade entirely as though bound to her. A strange warmth spread through her fingers. Subtle at first, a faint tingling beneath the skin, then growing steadily, a heat not painful but alive, thrumming beneath her flesh. She drew in a sharp breath and looked at her palms. The soot glimmered faintly in the dim light, as though stirred by some unseen current. Tiny sparks traced patterns across her skin, delicate and flickering. Her breath quickened. The warmth pulsed again, deeper now. Her whole body seemed to hum in response. A soft voice rose, not in her mind this time but in the air itself, low and resonant, as though woven into the rustle of the leaves and the crackle of unseen embers. Child of the flame, why do you grieve so deeply? Elira gasped. She turned, but no figure stood nearby. The voice seemed to come from everywhere, and from nowhere. Her throat tightened. Who speaks? She whispered, her voice trembling. There was a pause, as though the very air considered her question. I am the spirit of the flame. Long have I slumbered in the blood of your line, in the hearth of your mother, in the threads of the gown that was burned. Elira's eyes widened. She looked down at the blackened traces on her skin, the shimmering warmth that now curled gently around her fingers. The ashes of the gown, ashes that held more than sorrow. Her mother's stories came rushing back, tales of old powers, of spirits bound to families of the land, to crafts, to elements. Her mother had spoken of a distant ancestor, one who had been touched by the elemental flame, granted gifts in a time before the village even stood. But those were only stories, weren't they? The spirit's voice deepened as though in answer to her thoughts. Blood remembers. Even when hope is lost. Even when the world turns cruel, the old bond stirs again when most needed. Alira's heart pounded. Her breath came quick and shallow. But why now? She whispered. Why speak to me? I have nothing. They have taken everything. I am no one. The spirit's warmth seemed to wrap around her, neither comfort nor pity, simply truth. You are not no one. You are of the flame. You are of the old line. That which was broken may be mended. That which was lost may yet rise anew. The glow in her hands brightened. Sparks began to swirl faintly around her fingers, rising into the night like tiny stars. Alira stared, wonder mingling with fear. But what can I do? My gown is gone. My place at the festival is gone. Even if I go back they will mock me, cast me out. The spirit's voice softened, though the power beneath it remained vast. I do not offer vengeance. I do not offer hollow pride. I offer choice. A sudden stillness fell across the glade. Even the night breeze seemed to pause, the forest listening. You may remain in sorrow, the spirit continued. You may hide your heart, let this night pass and cling to the ashes of what was lost. The warmth surged through her, filling her chest, her limbs, her breath. Or you may awaken. You may embrace the flame that sleeps within. And in so doing, you may step toward your true destiny, not in rags nor in shame, but in light. Alira's throat tightened. Tears pricked her eyes once more, not of grief now but of something deeper, older. A trembling hope she scarcely dared name. Her whole life she had known only shadows. The cruelty of her stepmother and stepsisters. The silence of those who looked away. The ache of longing for a mother's touch, for kindness, for belonging. Could it be true? Could there be more? She closed her eyes, heart pounding. The warmth of the flame spirit pulsed in time with her breath. What must I do? She whispered. The spirit answered at once, as though it had awaited this question for centuries. Will you embrace what you are? Will you cast aside the fear they placed upon you? Will you rise, child of the flame? Alira's hands trembled. She thought of her mother, how she would have smiled on this night, proud of her daughter. She thought of the villagers, of the lanterns now shining in the square, of the dance she had once dreamed of joining, of the stars above that had watched her weep alone. And she thought of her stepmother's cold gaze, her stepsister's laughter, of the ashes meant to crush her spirit. But they had not. She opened her eyes. The stars overhead seemed brighter now. The glade shimmered faintly as though the very world held its breath. I will, she whispered, voice steadier now. I will not hide. I will not be small. The spirit's warmth surged, bright and fierce. Sparks spiraled upward in a sudden flare, the air shimmering with unseen power. Then rise, Alira. The flame is yours. It has always been. A low hum filled the glade, resonant and deep. Around her, the ground stirred, the ashes from her mother's gown lifted gently, spiraling upward like a dance of embers. They wove through the air, encircling her in rings of light. Alira gasped. The ashes shimmered, their dull gray fading, replaced by a faint golden glow. Your sorrow was true, the spirit whispered. But your heart remained unbroken. The flame answers strength, not bitterness. The glowing embers swirled faster, weaving threads of light about her body. Alira felt warmth spread through her, not only her hands but her very blood, her breath, her bones. She closed her eyes, breath steady. The sorrow remained, but now it mingled with resolve. The girl who had run in grief now stood in something greater. When she opened her eyes again, the glade shimmered with a gentle light. The ashes had settled, not on the earth but upon her. Her tattered clothes now shimmered faintly, woven through with fine threads of gold and deep ember red. The fabric clung soft and light to her skin, neither gown nor cloak, but something altogether new, crafted not of silk or linen but of flame and will. Alira drew in a breath. Her heart beat strong, sure. The warmth of the spirit remained within her now, not a separate voice but a presence woven through her being. The night breeze stirred again. The trees seemed to bow gently as though in recognition. And within Alira, a truth settled firm as stone. She would not remain hidden. She would not cower before those who had tried to break her. She would walk into the festival, not in ashes but in light. The air had shifted. Alira could feel it on her skin and her bones. The glade no longer seemed part of the ordinary forest. The shadows had deepened into velvety blue, the stars above gleamed like old sentinels. The warmth of the flame spirit still pulsed within her, a steady hum beneath her breath. It is not yet complete, the spirit whispered. The choice begins the path, but it is the trial that shapes it. Elira stood straighter. Her gown, no, not a gown, not truly, but a weaving of ash, flame and light, fluttered softly with the night breeze. What trial? She asked, her voice low but unwavering. The trial of embers, came the reply. Few among your blood have faced it. Fewer still have passed. It is the forging of spirit and truth. If you will walk it, you must come deeper. To where the old flame waits. Elira did not hesitate. I will go, she said. Her fear remained but no longer ruled her. A faint shimmer in the air ahead, a path of soft, ember glow weaving through the trees. Without another word, Elira stepped forward, following the unseen guide. The forest grew thicker. The air smelled of deep earth and old wood, touched faintly by smoke that was not of fire but of something more ancient, magic older than memory. The path twisted, wound between trunks as broad as towers. No bird sang here. No creature stirred. Only the pulse of the spirit guided her on. Few have entered this place since your ancestor lit the first flame, the voice whispered. It is where the bond was first forged, and where it must be renewed. Elira's heart beat faster, but her steps remained steady. The warmth in her blood grew stronger, deeper, as though the flame recognized this place. Her mind swirled with questions. Who was this ancestor? Why had her mother never spoken of this in full? But the answers would come in time. For now she must face what lay ahead. The path opened at last into a clearing unlike any she had seen. The trees here bent outward, their trunks blackened yet alive, leaves shimmering faintly as if dusted with gold. In the center, a low stone circle ringed a sunken pit filled with glowing embers. No flames, no smoke, only a deep, pulsing light. It throbbed in time with her breath. Step within, the spirit whispered. Face the truth of your heart. Only then may you rise anew. Elira hesitated for only a moment. Then, drawing a deep breath, she stepped barefoot into the circle. At once the air thickened, heavy with unseen force. The embers flared, not burning but suffusing the clearing with rich, golden light. Her vision blurred and the world tilted. And she was no longer standing. Darkness wrapped around her, warm but endless. Then voices rose, soft at first, growing clearer. You are not worthy. She is only an orphan. Her beauty means nothing. The mocking tones of her stepsisters. The cold voice of her stepmother. Echoes of every slight, every whispered cruelty. Elira's heart clenched. The ache of old wounds rose unbidden. But the spirit's voice came again, steady and low. Do you accept their words? She stood taller in the darkness. No, she whispered. Then louder, no. The shadows rippled, wavered. The voices faltered. Another vision formed. She stood in the village square, dressed in rags, the crowd laughing. Her mother's face appeared, sad, distant, turning away. You failed her, the vision whispered. You are alone. Pain lanced through her. The grief of her mother's loss was her deepest wound. Do you believe this? The spirit asked. Tears burned her eyes. I miss her, Elira whispered. But I did not fail her. She would not want me to be afraid. The vision shuddered, then dissolved in a burst of golden sparks. The darkness shifted again. Now she stood before a great flame, vast, roaring, endless. Within it, shadowed figures moved, tall and proud, faces half seen. Ancestors. One stepped forward, a woman with long flame-gold hair and eyes like burning coals. Who are you, child of my line? The figure asked. Elira's voice trembled. I am Elira, daughter of Lisa. The figure regarded her silently, then spoke. Why have you come? Elira's throat tightened. The words came from her heart. Because I will not be broken. Because I will not hide any longer. I seek my true self. The great flame pulsed. Then be judged, the ancestor intoned. The fire surged forward, not to consume but to surround. It pressed against her, heat and light searing through her spirit. Visions poured through her mind, her life laid bare. Moments of shame, small cruelties she had endured or inflicted, moments of doubt, of hope, of love. Her every truth. Her heart thundered. The pressure grew unbearable. But she did not falter. She stood firm, her gaze steady. I am not perfect, she whispered. But I will be true. I will be strong. I will be more than they believed. The flame flared higher, then stilled. The voice came again, softer now. You are accepted. The fire receded, leaving only warmth in her blood, strength in her bones. The ancestor smiled faintly, then faded back into the light. Slowly the darkness thinned. The clearing returned, the ember pit, the blackened trees. But Elira stood different now. Her eyes gleamed softly as though lit from within. Her gown shimmered with deeper hues, threads of crimson and gold. A faint glow traced her skin, the mark of the trial. The spirit's voice rose once more. You have walked the path. You have faced your truth. You are no longer the girl who wept in the woods. Elira drew a deep breath, her heart light yet strong. No, she whispered. I am not. The forest seemed to breathe with her. A new strength filled her limbs. Her sorrow remained, but now it wove through a core of iron. The fear that had bound her so long had burned away, leaving resolve in its place. The flame spirit spoke a final time, its voice softer now, like a warm ember in her chest. Go forth, Elira. The festival awaits. Let them see not the orphan girl but the child of flame. Your destiny begins this night. With steady steps, Elira turned from the clearing. The ember path still gleamed beneath her feet, winding back toward the village. Toward her future. Elira stood still in the clearing as the last echoes of the trial faded into the night. Her breath came steady now, her heart quiet, no longer a fluttering thing trapped in a cage of fear. The fire within her, newly awakened, pulsed gently in her veins. It is time, the flame spirit whispered. From the still glowing embers at her feet, tendrils of golden light began to rise, slow at first, then with a graceful urgency. They danced around her ankles like warm wind, curling up her legs, tracing her arms, brushing her hair. The air thickened with a soft humming, ancient and rhythmic, like the language of stars long dead and reborn. The ash that clung to her skin began to shimmer, lifting as if weightless and folding in on itself in midair. Threads of fire wove through it, spinning a pattern too complex for the eye to follow. It was not sewing, it was summoning. Weaving not with cloth but with memory and magic. Piece by piece a gown emerged. It hugged her form like a second skin, yet flowed like water. Its color shifted with the light, deep amber, gold and crimson, flickering like flame caught in motion. Symbols burned softly along the hem and cuffs, sigils of protection, power and lineage. Not just fabric, this was history. The sleeves trailed like fire's edge yet gave off no heat. The skirt moved on its own, sweeping in elegant waves as though alive. It carried weight not of fabric but of purpose. Elira touched her chest and found a small pendant forming there too, over her heart, an ember encased in glass, glowing steadily with her own light. She turned her hands over, marveling at the warmth in her palms. Her very breath shimmered in the air. She felt aligned. As though for the first time in her life, her outside matched what had always been hidden within. She had no mirror, yet somehow she saw herself fully. The flame spirit's voice returned, low and solemn. This is the gown of flame. It was never burned, it was waiting. Your soul has kindled it and now it is yours. Elira took a slow step forward, and the ground beneath her seemed to ripple in soft golden tones. The gown moved with her like a whisper, no weight, only presence. She walked and the clearing seemed to respond. Then the voice deepened slightly, weighted with warning. With this comes change. The world will not see you as it did. Some will bow. Others will fear. But none will be able to deny. Your destiny will burn through the veil. Be ready, Elira. The festival is not the end. It is the door. Elira nodded once, her gaze steady. I'm not afraid, she whispered. She wasn't. Not of their laughter, not of the whispers, not of the stepmother or her cruel daughters. Not even of the unknown, for it now lived inside her, whispering of futures lit by fire. The forest, once a place of sorrow, now seemed sacred. And from it, she would return not as the girl in ash, but as something they had tried to destroy and only strengthened. She lifted her head and stepped into the ember-lined path that would carry her back. Behind her, the clearing slowly dimmed. The embers cooled. But they would remember. They would always remember the girl who entered in tears and left robed in fire. Elira walked forward, a quiet flame lighting the way. The moon hung bright in the night sky, a silver sentinel over the village square. Lanterns swayed on every post and rooftop, their soft glows flickering in the warm summer breeze. The festival of light had begun. Music played, children laughed, and the townsfolk gathered in their finest attire, eager for the night's celebration. Elira walked the path toward the village with steady steps. The gown of flame shimmered with every movement, trailing faint wisps of light that lingered in her wake. Her bare feet touched the earth lightly, as if she belonged to something deeper than the world of men. She could hear the festival before she saw it, the music, the hum of voices, the clatter of dancing feet on cobblestone. And when she reached the square, she paused. The lantern-lit space burst with color. Banners overhead, tables laden with food and wine, townsfolk laughing and spinning to the beat of the drums. At the center of it all stood her stepmother and stepsisters, resplendent in borrowed silks, preening and gossiping, certain of their place. Until now. As Alira stepped into the light, a hush rippled through the crowd. One by one heads turned. Laughter faded. Eyes widened. She was a vision, her gown alive with flame, her hair catching the light in a radiant cascade, her gaze calm and unflinching. The symbols woven into the gown glimmered softly, ancient and unreadable to most, but undeniably powerful. The musicians faltered, their fingers freezing mid-note. "Who is that?" someone whispered. "She looks like, no it can't be." "Alira?" gasped an older woman at the market stall. "But her gown, what is she wearing?" A breathless murmur swept through the square. The stepmother, standing near the festival dais, paled as her gaze locked on the figure approaching. Her mouth opened in disbelief. The eldest stepsister let out a small, strangled noise. The youngest clutched her mother's sleeve, trembling. Alira's steps did not quicken. She moved with purpose, neither seeking attention nor avoiding it. The villagers parted before her without thought, creating a path of their own accord, as if some instinct deeper than reason commanded respect. There was no arrogance in her eyes, only a quiet certainty. She stopped beneath the great lantern that crowned the center of the square. The light above flickered once, then steadied, casting a soft glow over her figure. Around her, silence held. For a long moment, no one dared speak. It was as though the night itself held its breath. Then the flame spirit's earlier words echoed in her mind. "They will see you. They will sense what stirs within you now." Alira lifted her chin, her gaze sweeping the square. The villagers shifted uneasily beneath her eyes. Not out of guilt, but out of something older, the deep, instinctive awe of one standing before a force of nature. "Go on," she thought quietly, her heart steady. "Let them see." The stepsisters stood frozen, their faces ashen. Gone was the smug laughter of the morning, the cruel joy of burned cloth. Now they saw something they could not grasp, something beyond silk or station. Her stepmother forced a brittle smile and took a step forward, voice shaking slightly. "Alira, what is this nonsense? What are you wearing?" Alira met her gaze calmly but did not answer. No explanation was owed. Instead, she turned slightly, allowing the gown to ripple like living fire. The crowd gasped softly, some stepping back. The older folk, those who remembered the old tales, watched with wary eyes. They felt it. The power. The change. The Festival of Light was meant to honor new beginnings, to welcome blessings for the year to come. Tonight, under the gaze of the moon and lanterns, the true beginning was not in the banners or the feast, but in the girl standing quietly before them, robed in flame, untouched by fear. A new current had entered the heart of the village and all could feel it. And the night was only just beginning. The hush that had settled over the square seemed to thrum with unseen energy. The villagers barely breathed as Alira stood beneath the central lantern, her flame-bound gown casting ripples of light across the cobblestones. The air itself felt charged, expectant. The musicians, uncertain, glanced between one another. The song they'd been playing had long since faltered. No one dared resume without a signal. Then, with a small nod, the elder drummer, Master Ivan, whose memory reached back farther than most, lifted his worn mallets and struck the first deep beat. Boom! The drum's echo rolled through the square like distant thunder. Another beat followed, then another, slow, deliberate, like the pulse of the earth itself. A second drum joined, and then a pipe's soft, wavering call. The music was no longer the lively tune of festival merriment. It was something older. Something deeper. Alira's bare feet moved forward, one slow step, then another. The crowd parted again, forming a wide ring around the heart of the square. Her eyes drifted closed as the rhythm guided her. She felt the flame spirit within her gown stir in response, a warmth spreading through her limbs. Without thought, without plan, she began to dance. At first, her movements were simple, measured steps that matched the beat of the drums. But with each passing moment, the dance deepened. Her arms rose, her fingers tracing patterns in the air. The fabric of her gown shimmered, leaving trails of light behind every motion. The air around her seemed to pulse in time with her movements, alive with unseen forces. A low murmur rippled through the villagers. "Look. Her dress, it moves like. Is it magic?" But it was more than that. The flame spirit, bound through blood and ancient oath, was answering her call. Its presence swelled, no longer hidden. As Alira's dance quickened, the light from the lanterns dimmed, not extinguished but humbled as a deeper fire took form. From the edges of the square, the elders watched with grave eyes. They saw what others could not, the shapes coalescing in the air, the faint patterns woven into the gown of flame. Symbols not seen in a generation, nor spoken of outside the oldest stories. Master Ivan's hands trembled slightly on the drum. He recognized them. The marks of the land's protectors, those chosen long ago to stand between the village and the wild forces of earth and sky. Symbols of guardianship, of fire's balance, of fate. The whispers began. She bears the signs. The old ones, could it be? I thought those lines were lost. Elira spun gracefully, her gown flaring like a living torch. The crowd stepped back instinctively, but the flames did not burn, only glowed with a steady warmth. With each motion, more of the ancient script revealed itself, circling her wrists, her waist, even her brow. As the music swelled, so too did the force within her. The flame spirit's voice rose softly in her mind, guiding her steps, her breath. You are the bridge. The lost flame lives through you now. She felt it, not fear, not even triumph, but belonging. A sense that this moment had been waiting for her all along. Her stepsisters, pressed behind their mother, could only gape. Gone was their mocking laughter. Their silks and jewels looked gaudy now, pale shadows before Elira's light. The stepmother's face twisted in something close to dread. Elira, she whispered, voice dry. What have you done? But the girl did not hear. The dance had become more than motion. It was a rite, a calling. The flame spirit answered her heart, and through that bond the very earth seemed to listen. Then came the turning point. As Elira's movements built to a crescendo, the flames around her rose higher, not wild or destructive but shaped, deliberate. The symbols formed rings of light around her feet and above her head. In the flickering glow, the villagers saw more than a girl. They saw the echo of the land's old protector's long-thought myth. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. Prophecy, an elder woman murmured. The one of the flame returning in the time of need. Others took up the whisper. The lost guardian. She bears the mark. And still Elira danced, her every step a silent declaration. This was not vengeance. Not pride. It was truth, etched in flame and soul. The final strains of the music rose, the pipes soaring, the drums thundering in time with her heartbeat. Elira spun one last time, arms lifted, the gown blazing bright. The firelight surged upward, spiraling into the night sky. Then stillness. The music ceased. The flames settled, drawn back into the living cloth of her gown. Elira stood at the center of the square, chest rising and falling, face serene. Silence reigned. And then from the edge of the crowd, Master Ivan stepped forward. He bowed low, his voice carrying clear in the night. We have seen the signs, he said. And we remember. The elders followed, heads bowed in reverence. Before the stunned eyes of the villagers, the meaning became clear. This was not mere spectacle. This was destiny, revealed in flame, carried by the one they had once overlooked. Elira met their gaze calmly. The night was no longer the stepsisters' stage. The festival no longer belonged to shallow charms and finery. It had become something more, a turning of the old wheel, an awakening of the land's true voice. And all who stood beneath the lantern light knew, nothing would be the same again. The echoes of the dance had not yet faded when new voices rippled through the square, guards in polished breastplates, heralds pushing through the crowd. A tall figure in deep crimson and gold strode into the ring of onlookers, his cloak snapping in the cool air. The local prince, Lord Alric himself, had come, drawn by the strange light and the murmurs of old magic. His sharp eyes scanned the gathered villagers and then fixed upon Elira, who still stood in the center, her gown of flame shimmering softly in the night. His voice rang with authority. Who calls the ancient fire in my lands? He demanded. Who dances beneath the sacred signs without leave? The villagers shrank back instinctively. No one spoke. The prince was known to be just but proud, one who valued order above all. The silence deepened, thick with tension. Then Elira lifted her chin. Her voice was calm, steady, and resonant. I am Elira, she answered. Daughter of this land. Of no high house nor noble blood. But the flame you see was not summoned in pride. It has answered its own call. Her words carried across the square like wind over water, clear, unwavering. The prince studied her closely, eyes narrowing. You claim kinship with the old powers? He asked. When the symbols of the guardians have not been seen in generations? Before Elira could reply, a sharp, spiteful voice cut through the crowd. She is nothing, my lord, cried one of the stepsisters, flushed with fear and envy. A servant girl. daughter of a forgotten seamstress. She shames this festival with false magic, dangerous, wild. The other stepsister quickly joined, her voice trembling. She bewitched the gathering. The flames, this display, it is trickery meant to deceive. The stepmother, pale and shaking, nodded furiously behind them, unwilling to speak aloud but urging her daughters on. A murmur of uncertainty rippled through some of the villagers, old fears stirring, fear of witchcraft, of chaos, of change. A few shifted uneasily, glancing at Alira with wary eyes. But then the air changed. A subtle warmth spread from the center of the square. The flame spirit, ever watchful, stirred again. Its presence grew, a deep hum beneath the skin, a gentle pressure in the breath. The gathered people felt it instinctively. This was no illusion, no petty sorcery. The stepsisters faltered mid-sentence. Their voices caught in their throats. The spirit's unseen gaze fell upon them, not cruel but unyielding, a truth too great to deny. They stumbled back, clutching each other, their courage evaporating. Alira remained still. She spoke again, voice even stronger. "I need no titles, no lineage," she said. "The spirit of the flame knows me. The land remembers. I stand as I am, called not crowned." A hush fell. The villagers looked between the prince and the girl of fire. Many began to see her with new eyes, not as the lowly servant they had overlooked, but as one touched by something far older and greater. The elders, still bowed from before, spoke next. Master Ivan stepped forward, voice ringing with quiet conviction. "My lord," he addressed the prince, "we have seen the signs. The patterns of old. The guardian's mark reborn. This is no deceit." Others nodded, elders, artisans, even skeptical townsfolk now swayed by what they had witnessed. Prince Alric regarded Alira a long moment more, weighing the truth in her bearing. Then he spoke, his tone thoughtful. "It is not for me alone to judge the will of the ancient forces," he said. "But if this flame walks with you, girl, then let it be known, you are not to be harmed nor hindered." He turned to the stepsisters, his gaze cold. "And let none dare slander one touched by the true fire." The stepsisters shrank, their protests silenced, their faces pale with humiliation. The stepmother seemed to wither, her earlier malice now shame beneath the weight of watching eyes. The prince looked back at Alira. "The days ahead will bring questions. Change stirs when old power returns. But know this, tonight you have shown truth before all." With a final nod, he stepped back, allowing the festival to breathe once more. Alira stood tall, the flickering warmth of her gown steady at her side. Around her, the villagers began to murmur, not in fear but in wonder. Some knelt. Others bowed their heads. The weight of old prejudice broke beneath the light of newfound understanding. She was no longer just a servant girl. She was the chosen flame. The dawn broke soft and golden, the light of the new day filtering gently through the branches and over the rooftops of the village. Smoke curled from the hearths as the first fires of morning were lit, though for many sleep had not come at all. The events of the night, the dance of flame, the ancient symbols returned, the prince's words, had shaken the old rhythms of the town. The festival of light, meant to mark the passing of seasons, had become something more, the awakening of a long-forgotten truth. At the heart of it stood Alira. She moved through the square as the sun rose, her gown of living flame now soft, the embers warm rather than fierce. Where she stepped, the villagers drew aside, not in fear but in reverence. Some offered shy nods, others whispered words of respect. A few elders even bent their heads as she passed. The festival grounds, still adorned with ribbons and lanterns, seemed brighter for her presence. The elders had gathered early beneath the ancient oak that stood at the edge of the village, a place where judgments were given, where oaths were once sworn. Alira was summoned there, not by command but by invitation, her place now recognized among them. As she approached, her stepsisters hovered nearby, pale and subdued. Gone were their mocking smiles. The arrogance that had once filled their every gesture was now replaced by hollow shame. They dared not meet her gaze, shrinking into the shadows of the crowd. The stepmother, too, stood silent, her hands clasped tightly before her. The lines of bitterness in her face had deepened overnight, yet there was no fire left in her eyes, only regret and fear of what might come. Master Ivan, the eldest of the council, stepped forward. His voice, when it came, was clear and strong, ringing out across the gathered villagers. "Alira," he began, "child of this land, vessel of the ancient flame, you have stood before us with truth. You have awakened a power that lay dormant for generations. Last night, before all, we saw the signs written in light." He paused, glancing at the others beside him, each elder nodding in turn. In the old ways there were guardians, keepers of the balance between hearth and wild, people and earth, flame and life. Long have we been without such a one. But now, the flame has chosen. A murmur ran through the onlookers, hope, curiosity and a stirring of ancient pride. Alira, Master Ivan continued, do you accept this destiny? Not one given by us, nor by princes or lords, but by the spirit that walks beside you, by the land itself. For a long moment Alira stood in silence. The wind brushed gently against her skin, and beneath her feet, the earth seemed to hum softly, alive with unseen music. The flame spirit's voice stirred within her, not words but a deep knowing, an invitation, a promise. She lifted her head, her voice steady and bright. I accept, she said. Not for pride nor for vengeance, but to honor the spirit that has called me. To protect this land and its people. To walk in truth. At her words, the gathered villagers let out a collective breath, as if something long-held in tension had finally been released. The sense of a great turning filled the air, as though an old wheel, stalled for years, now creaked into motion once more. The elders stepped forward as one, forming a half-circle before her. Each placed a hand over their heart in the ancient sign of respect. Then let it be known, Master Ivan declared. From this day forward, Alira is the guardian of this land's ancient magic. Her word shall be heard. Her place shall be honored. And the festival of light shall now mark not only the changing of seasons, but the rise of one chosen to protect us all. Cheers rose from many throats, hesitant at first, then swelling into true celebration. The villagers who had once ignored or pitied the girl now smiled openly, some with tears in their eyes. Children clutched their mothers' skirts, wide-eyed with wonder. Alira's stepsisters, seeing the tide turned, tried to melt into the crowd, but they could not escape the notice of the villagers. Whispers followed them, and though no harsh words were spoken aloud, their disgrace was plain for all to see. No one would soon forget their cruelty, nor Alira's strength. As the festival resumed, the music of pipes and drums rang out once more. But now the celebration carried a new energy, one of renewal, of unity, of hope. Alira moved among the people not as a servant, but as one of purpose. Wherever she went, the light of the flame spirit shimmered faintly about her, a living symbol of her bond with the ancient magic. The prince's heralds, too, spread word of what had passed, carrying the tale beyond the village borders. In the days and weeks to come, travelers and scholars would arrive, eager to witness the rebirth of the old ways. But for Alira the greatest change was within herself. The timid girl who had once wept in the shadows of her stepmother's house was gone. In her place stood a young woman of courage, compassion, and quiet power, one who would walk her path with grace, no longer bound by the cruelty of the past. As the sun climbed higher and the festival of light danced on, Alira gazed out across the village, her home, her people. And in her heart she knew, this was only the beginning.